Hello and welcome back to the Movie Talk. My name is Ryan, and today we will be talking about my most anticipated film of the year, which was Superman. Now, to say the expectations were set very high, for me and for many, would be a very big understatement. Obviously, for many of hopefully you watching this video, you know that obviously know about Superman and obviously know how big this film is. Not only just for us film fans, obviously we haven't had a Superman movie in 12 years plus. Obviously this is supposed to be the big kickstart to James Gunn's new DC universe. So a lot was riding on this movie, and there's been a lot of online talk, good and bad, and some understandable. Listen, obviously a lot of people like myself are very excited for this film and very excited to get another, big screen adaptation of Superman, obviously directed by James Gunn, who may, be the best comic book movie director of all time. And obviously, a lot of people have a soft spot for the previous iteration of Henry Cavill, which I will delve into all those things in a little bit. But to say that there's been a lot of chatter about this film and a lot of talk about, just surrounding the film. Now, obviously, as I said today, I got to see it today at 2 p.m. screening, and I got this nice little Superman pin, which is very nice and very cool, and makes me like the film 5% more, jokingly. But yeah, there was a lot leading into this film, and just to give you my background of the Superman character as a whole, is that I like Superman. He's definitely, I would say, one of my favorite superheroes. Obviously, I've not seen all the Christopher Reeves. I've seen the first one, and I believe I've seen parts of the second one, but I've not heard great things about the third and the fourth, especially the fourth one, The Quest for Peace. So I have not seen those. I've saw Superman Returns, which I think that honestly might be my least favorite of the ones I've seen, because it put me right to sleep. But no disrespect, I'm all joking, but at the end of the day, it had a lot of good moments. Like, obviously, I think the whole plane scene may actually be the best Superman moment, period. So, funny enough, that's coming from Superman Returns, but obviously, people have stated for a while the flaws that film has, where I don't believe Superman throws a punch the entire 2.5 hour runtime. And then obviously you have Man of Steel, which is the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where it is so much action. And I do like Man of Steel. I don't know if I go love. I love Henry Cavill as Superman, but I do really like Man of Steel. And while I definitely see the flaws of the film, I do see a lot of the great, and I definitely see why people love Man of Steel. But overall, I feel like we've had some really solid interpretations, and of course, I know there's a lot of TV with Smallville, Superman the Animated Series, Superman and Lois now. So there's a lot of that realm of Superman, but for the most part, I stick to the movies. And obviously, giving you my appreciation I have for the Christopher Reeve, especially after watching the documentary Superman about Christopher Reeve. I gained so much more respect for him as a person. I have much respect for what he did for the comic book movies genre and movies in general, But obviously, to say some elements of his Superman movies don't hold up just is unfortunate at the time, being they were made in the late 70s. Brendan Routh, once again, all due respect, had a lot of great elements with his Superman movie, but unfortunately, it just was not that great, in my opinion. And then Man of Steel is, in my opinion, it's easily the Superman movie I watched the most. I'd have to rewatch them to kind of get a ranking, which I might do a ranking video later on. But it's the one I rewatched the most, and there are obviously a lot of great things I love about Man of Steel, like the score being very different than the original one, but at the same time being very good and unique. And obviously there's a lot of good scenes in Man of Steel, but obviously there's a lot of flaws with the film itself that prevent it from being really that elite top tier superhero movie. But anyways, getting into today's movie, Superman, starring David Cornsweet as Superman, Rachel Brosnan as Lois Lane, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, along with, of course, you have the Justice Gang. Obviously, Guy Gardner as, Nathan Fillion as Gary Gardner, Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, and along with you have Mr. Terrific in there, and a lot more. You know, Metamorpho, you had Crypto the dog. You had a lot of characters in there. And I'm trying to keep the first part of this review spoiler free. And just the simple part is I had a super, pun intended, fun time. And this was me walking in with sky high expectations, as I said. Easily my most anticipated movie. And I just went in so happy and jittery. And I walked out, I will say, with a smile on my face. And like I said, I did have a super fun time. David Corenswet is, well, obviously it's really hard to obviously compare him to other Supermans besides, I guess, Brandon Routh, because he also only had one performance with Superman Returns, because obviously Henry Cavill had multiple appearances and along with Christopher Reeve. But so far, in his one movie, I think David Corenswet did a great job at capturing the heart of Superman and just how much he loves mankind. And there's especially a speech later near the end of the movie he makes, which I thought was just pure Superman, and I think he delivered fantastic. So not enough praise for me for David Corenswet. I think he was probably the biggest pro of this movie was him as Superman. And the big pro is Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. For the most part, honestly, I haven't been crazy about the Lois Lanes. I think obviously Amy Adams is a great actress. I think they gave her some stuff in Man of Steel, but there was the rest of the movies that kind of didn't really give her much to do. I don't really remember the Lois Lane's name in Superman Returns. And I think Margot Kidder did a good job as, the original Lois Lane. But I would definitely say Rachel Brosnahan and her one performance is easily my favorite Lois Lane. And along with that, well, Gene Hackman, for what he did for the character, is just so iconic. And I have much appreciation. And so I don't know if I could put him above that. But he's either right there, Nicholas Hoult, or, he's clearly above Kevin Spacey and Jesse Eisenberg and the recent adaptations of Lex Luthor. I think he did a phenomenal job with the character. The best way I can describe him is he is a petty bitch. I think that's the best way to put it. He just did a really good job with the character, and you definitely don't like him, and I feel like that was the goal. So I think Nicholas Hoult is probably the best actor of all these people in the movie. Definitely at least between, I think, the main three. No disrespect to Rachel Brosnahan and David Corenswet, but Nicholas Holt's a fantastic actor, and he shows it in every scene he's in. And along with that, there's obviously a lot of good, Crypto. I was interested definitely to see how they do that, and I'd say for the most part, I think they handled him very well, and he was just very much a cute dog, lovable, and I think they used him the perfect amount. And so that will kind of be my spoiler-free part of the review, where I've been thinking for a while what grade I would give it, and obviously I plan on rewatching it at some point to give more a finalized opinion on the film. But I would say as of right this second, I'm gonna give Superman an A-. Like I said, we're gonna get into some of the negative aspects a little later on, but I want to delve into more spoilerish areas, so I don't want to start just saying things that are spoilers without making it clear I'm in spoiler section. So obviously I'd give Superman an A-, and like I said, I had a very fun time with the film, and I think it is a very good kickstart to the DC Universe. Now, obviously going into spoilers, this film takes a lot of bold choices, in my opinion, and I think easily the boldest decision, which I'm still mixed on and want to rewatch the film and see how I truly feel on, is the whole Jor-El thing, where obviously in most iterations Jor-El's kind of been like, obviously Superman's real father, which I want to say was not expecting Bradley Cooper to be Jor-El, but nonetheless very small time in the film. But it's very interesting what they decided to do in the movie, obviously talking about how, translating that not a lot of great morale points, I guess, from the Kryptonian side. Obviously multiple wives and just very interesting wording they decided to use it from Jor-El that I thought I definitely caught me off guard. And since I get trying to make him more human, in the sense, obviously, we see at the end of the film, where in the beginning we see he's listening to the program from, his Kryptonian mom and, dad. To then at the end of the film, he's listening to a message from, his dad, but it's his Earth dad, Pa Kent, which I think kind of just shows how much, Superman is just trying to be human like us and how much of a human he is, obviously being from Kansas. So I think it was definitely an interesting route, and some senses, because I don't, was very caught off guard by that, but at the same time, I think obviously it did a good job in moving the story forward and making people be against Superman, as, they were like, what the hell's going on there? And along with that too, I think obviously a lot of the cameos, like obviously my favorite cameo easily is when they showed Peacemaker for like 5 seconds on the TV, John Cena. Obviously it's going to be very interesting how season 2, they kind of re-changed some stuff. Obviously the original Justice League appeared in Peacemaker season 1. So it'll be very interesting how they tweak things there, but everyone in my theater had a good chuckle when they saw John Cena pop on the screen, me and myself included. And overall, the whole Justice Gang, I think they had a good amount of presence in the film, but they never felt like Superman and his friends. And they had just the right amount of screen time. And I think my favorite was Guy Gardner. Nathan Fillion is always hilarious. And I think he definitely just knocked it out of the park too. The rest of them do a good job, but I feel like they kind of give Nathan Fillion the best lines. And I think he did the best with that material. And yeah, obviously I didn't really even delve into, Superman's parents much, because they weren't crazy amount in the movie. But, they pull off, being a good Kansas, farm family. I would say this, they actually, in my opinion, feel the most authentic. That, like, you could believe they're actually, from Kansas and they have a farm. So I'll give James Gunn a lot of credit on that they feel easily the most realistic in that sense. But I think there was only like 10 minutes of screen time with them. Though the scenes were good, there just wasn't a ton to go off of immediately. And the final thing I want to cover here before, signing off for the video is this film. I heard every review saying this, and I'm going to say it too, is that this film literally feels like you're reading a comic book. And I didn't really understood what that meant. I was like, interesting way to word it. But now after seeing the film, I kind of see what they mean, where they kind of just throw you right into the action. Where the first trailer starts, with Superman crash landing by Krypton, and obviously the preview we saw that was released on YouTube. It's like you get right into the action. You obviously get the title. They start telling you about, if he's been Superman for 3 years. He's coming off his first loss, which, was an interesting way to start the film, but actually it was a way I kind of liked, where it, feels like an actual comic book or even like a TV series, where you're kind of just getting thrown right into the middle of the action, right into the middle of this established universe. And I will say there was obviously a lot of pros with that, where obviously we have the Justice Gang, and we're introduced to Maxwell Lord, played by James Gunn's brother. And we get a little hints here and there, like obviously when they're evacuating the city, we see the highway. I believe it's either the entrance or the exit ramp for Gotham City, so that was a cool little references. They have a little references here and there, kind of building out the universe. I think my only thing was, another thing I was disappointed by were the post-credit scenes, because I was hoping we were going to get some building towards the future instead of they were just kind of jokes. So I'd say easily that was kind of the most maybe disappointing, but maybe that's just because of my expectations. I will give that, but I was hopefully expecting a little bit of world, kind of setting up maybe towards a Batman or a Wonder Woman or the Flash or something like that. But nonetheless, I can't really blame James Gunn for something that I was hoping and making up in my head, not that anything was promised in that sense. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for my Superman review. Like I said, this is the most comic book movie ever, in the sense that I feel there's times where it feels like you're just opening up the comic book right into the middle of an adventure. And all around, all the performances were really well done. And actually, one more performance I'd like to shout out that I was not expecting was Jimmy Olsen. I don't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but I haven't really noticed much about the other Jimmy Olsens. I can easily say he is easily my favorite Jimmy Olsen, and the interesting route they decided to go with him, where I can't even really describe it myself, like where all these ladies are hitting on him and stuff, where it's just so unique, and I will admit it was hilarious, and I think easily my audience was laughing at all the Jimmy Olsen stuff, and myself, I was just very funny elements, and I didn't really expect that a lot from Jimmy Olsen, but I will give James Gunn a lot of credit that it was really funny, so I want to give that one shout out. But overall, I had a really fun time with Superman. I do want to rewatch it before I do a ranking of the Superman movies, or if I do a further video talking about Superman movies, before I give them like a definitive, kind of feeling of the film. But after viewing it one time, going through the film, very much looking forward to it. Like I said, easily my most anticipated movie of the year. Was very excited to see Superman, and I walked out having a ton of fun. But I do want to rewatch it to maybe see, was it just fun, or is it truly great, etc. So I would definitely stay tuned. I could definitely see another video coming on that end, but I definitely wanted to get out this video talking about Superman, as I've been annoying all my friends, family, girlfriend. I've been annoying everyone around me about how much I'm looking forward to this film, so that's why I'm putting it out to the internet. And like I said, overall, I'm going to give Superman an A-. I would say as of right this second. I'm a slate it right as my second favorite film as of right now. I do